Hi, everyone, and welcome back to The Things We Know. Today's guest is not just an unforgettable friend that I met during our coaching training. She and I have been connected, I'm just going to say for many lifetimes. We've been connected during, I've been following you ever since. Like, it's so interesting to me that we became friends as we were going through our coaching training. But, and I knew it from the minute I met you. You're just like, this I don't know anybody like you. You're this beautiful soul. You're a truth teller. You are so gifted in ways that I can't almost even explain. You bring depth and light into this world, and it's just an honor. And I'm so glad to have you on the pod.
Yay. It's my first time meeting Jenny Nesbit, our guest. But we have so many mutual friends besides Lisa and connections. So it already feels like I know you. Jenny, for our listeners, is a memoir and business book ghostwriter for personal development leaders and visionaries of New Earth. It's beautiful.
Mm.
Also, a spiritual life coach who's devoted her life to helping people heal and evolve, remembering their divinity and sovereign power.
Mm. Jenny believes that sharing our stories, we not only heal ourselves, but inspire others to live a life of worthiness and joy. Her writing speaks from the heart and helps her clients increase visibility, credibility, and authority, all while honoring their truth. She's a certified health coach and life coach with a holistic MBA through the Health Coach Institute. That's how we all know her. And she has a BA in English and creative writing with a concentration in nonfiction.
Jenny is also a domestic abuse survivor and a single mom who fought for and won sole custody of her children. She now lives a life grounded in self worth and joy, and she's passionate about helping others do the same. Jenny, welcome. Welcome to this pod episode with us. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you so much. That was a beautiful introduction, and I am just overjoyed to be here talking with you ladies. I respect you both very much, even though I just met you, Kari. I feel like I know you because I've heard about you, especially from Lisa. And like Lisa said, we go way back, and she's one of my very closest dear friends. So thank you for having me.
So I love that because we always wonder after we read the bio, it's like, how's that feel? How's that feel to hear it?
Yeah, it's wonderful, It's um my bio is I know my bio, right? But I would
Right?
say I'm even more touched just by what you said, Lisa.
Yeah, I mean, but I think there's something different, and in some ways, this speaks to what we're going to talk about with you today. Like, it's one thing to know your bio; it's another thing to hear it and feel what you have accomplished in your life, right? Like, again, there's so many avenues we could go down with you today. We want to talk about writing and women telling their stories, but like you are younger than Kari and I, and you have lived a ginormous life, right? So when you hear all of that, like, does your body do anything? Like, does it vibrate? Does it just go, holy shit? Like, what does it do?
I'm gonna have to jump right into talking about writing memoir to
Mm,
answer this because I mean, you're reflecting that with my bio, but when you write a memoir and you take the role of narrator, right?
mm,
Of observer of your own story, it is so powerful. That is writing my memoir that I'm doing right now. Not sure when that's going to come out, but uh, that's how I feel. Those feelings that you're mentioning
mm.
right now, right? Is that because you are taking a step back, to be the narrator, and then when you see yourself as a character in this storyline, sometimes you go, wow, like, holy
Mm.
shit, that's
Yeah.
crazy. That's amazing. You also get a lot of, I think, more insights
Mm.
by writing it and taking that observer role, And I'm a very spiritual person. So I think sometimes that's your higher self or your guides, having you look at it in a different way. And so I would say writing memoir, even if you didn't want to get it published or put it out to the world, it is an amazing healing journey just to do for yourself.
I
Mm.
mean, That makes so much sense.
It reminds me of our last retreat because we really started working with people on their hero's journey and how to
Yeah.
really start
Mhm.
looking at themselves as
We're
the
in
heroine
the
of their
hero's
story.
journey.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I love it. All right. So I sort of referenced this, but again, your life story is of one of resilience and power. So can you take us back a little bit to, I mean, I know it, but can you take our listeners back to where it all began? Like what led you to coaching and eventually ghostwriting?
Oh my goodness. So there's so much, right?
Yep.
Wow. So as Kari mentioned in my bio, I am a domestic abuse survivor. So I would say if we were going to go to a starting point, it would be rock bottom, right?
Mm,
Where I fell to my knees, literally, and begged the heavens for help.
mm,
I was so miserable. And I had an experience where I went to sleep, right? And then I woke up and everything was different. Like I wasn't depressed. I was, you know, um, just feeling happy, which I hadn't for years. And when you have not felt joy like that for years, it's almost a shock to your system. You know what I mean?
mm,
It's like you're high on life. Just like, what is this? I didn't know I could even feel this way anymore. And I had a whole day of feeling that way. And I would say now from this perspective, I was in 5D. Okay. I know it's a little
yeah.
woo, but it was like the colors were brighter, the sounds were different. I just got
Mm,
so much out of my children were little. I got so much joy out of just watching them play, and just taking a walk. And everything was so different.
mm,
And it gave me also a hope of like, wow, maybe this is possible for me, to find this place of happiness.
mm.
And so then I went to sleep and I woke up and it was back to the way it was.
Wow.
And I was super depressed and everything was heavy. And I said, thank you. I said, that's where I'm going to go.
Hmm.
Mm.
And from that day on, I devoted my life to my spirituality and my happiness. And I stayed in my marriage. And I was like, but I'm not going to let that affect me because that's never going to bring me happiness. If anything, it's sucking it out of me. So I'm going to I'm going to put it over there. And I think this is really important for women to hear that are in abusive relationships is that sometimes you have to heal before you can even leave.
Yeah.
Mm.
People will tell you like, "Oh, just leave, just leave." Okay, it's not as easy as that sounds,
Yeah.
so that's what I did. And that's when I found energy medicine. And I went on my first retreat, which was Donna Eden energy medicine. And that's when I was like, oh my God, these are my people.
Right.
These natural healers, these are my people. And so that got me into like the health coaching thing. And I found HCI. And then I started going to all of those retreats and met all of my support system. Lisa's one of those women that continued just being my friend and helping me grow and opening my eyes to what I had been accepting,
Mm,
and they were with me all the way when I finally left. And
Mm.
I fell apart because the thing is that when you're in that abuse situation, you're in survival mode. And so you're just going, you're going, you're going. And so I was like, okay, I got myself so healed. I'm so empowered. I see it. I'm going to leave and I'm just going to be a rock star. Well, what happened is that when I left, um, you're not running the marathon anymore. You're
Mm.
resting and you have to see it all, you know.
Yeah.
mm,
So I
Yeah.
fell apart. I fell apart. And luckily I was living with my parents. So they helped me with my children. I had a small baby, remember?
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And but I had, all of my friends, all the women stay right with me. I would do the masterminds, even though I wasn't really coaching because I was just falling apart, and they would just let me show up as I was. and support me through it. And that's how I kept going, was these, and that's why I'm such a believer in the retreats and women supporting women and living in community, because that's our power, that's our strength.
Mm.
And so then I, healed. I got over it. I hit it head on, and I went into the shadows, and I came out of it. And I also went through a huge spiritual awakening at that time, and got invited into the Akashic Records by my guides. And I've been doing that for years now, helping people heal past life traumas and just connect with their spirit guides and really remember who they are. Sometimes we think we're just this one person, and it's like, you've been all of these people. You have all of this wisdom with you, And as far as writing, I've always been a writer. I've always been a writer. I have a degree. I have a bachelor's in writing, and so it just has felt like a natural progression to now take all of that experience and use my other gift of writing. And I'm stepping into, this next chapter of sharing powerful stories that help people see that, they can change their
Yeah.
lives.
I love that you just said what you said, because Lisa and I say it a lot too, that women transforming community. And you said that so beautifully there, because as you wrote to us in when we were planning this, like, because the modern world has isolated women, and that story you just described, absolutely. And it sounds like showing up in a community with Lisa and these retreats really healed you. So
100%.
when you add the writing to it, how does storytelling help women reclaim that kind of overcome the isolation and reclaim that connection?
Mm-hmm. Well, all people, not just women, but all people, we are social creatures, right? And we learn by example. And so when you tell your story, when you share your story, and women are hearing this story, they identify themselves within your story. And that's when they're like, I'm not alone. I mean, they can literally be alone, in their home and in their marriage, and then have the book, that just speaks to them. They see themselves in this story. And by the end of the book, they see that there's more that's possible, So we inspire each other by showing each other, I think, our darkest corners and our biggest wounds and our insecurities, and also showing that we can be whole with all of that, So it's storytelling is, I mean, it's ancient wisdom, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
people always were teaching the lessons and the morals of life, and storytelling. There is no humanity or history without storytelling.
Yeah.
They say like the most ancient cultures carried down their stories through women. So it's fascinating and awesome. Yeah. And then when I think about what you were sharing, and then your experience healing in the presence of Lisa and Amy and Alice and other women, I think about what I always loved about those masterminds or any small group gathering or our retreats is, yes, you get a lot out of being held and supported directly for your story, but women heal so much listening to another woman tell her story. It's magical, and it's just like the healing almost floods you, when you're in like the third person observer, observing somebody's vulnerability and tell their story and watching them kind of really grow through that. What happens for you is huge. So this is so wonderful. You're doing this for women.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to hear you tell your story there, in that bit, because it sounded so linear, right? Like, I've been with you for not all of it, but for a good portion of it, right?
Yeah.
Especially the healing part. And it wasn't linear. It was
It
very
wasn't.
all over the place,
Yeah, it
right?
wasn't linear.
But I think what's powerful in you being able to tell it in such a linear way is I was like, oh crap, yeah, of course this is where she not only do you have the degree in writing, right? But of course this is where you are at this point helping other people, women tell their stories. Even the Akashic records, and we that's a whole nother pod, but if you don't know what the Akashic records are, go look it up.
Yeah.
I've had several readings with Jenny. They are unbelievable. She is, as I said, incredibly gifted. Um, but even that part of it, right? That's storytelling, right? When you're in the Akashic records and when
Absolutely.
with me, right, you're telling my story.
Mhm.
And so I guess I'm saying all this to say for our listeners who may feel like they are in the chaos of their life, when you have a moment, and maybe it is just sitting down and writing your own story, you will see the through line. It's one of my favorite things I do with clients is like, let's sit down and let's go through all the things you've accomplished. Because oftentimes people come to work with me and they're like, oh, but what am I doing? I'm all over the place. I'm like, are you though, really? Let's sit down and write this out. And you notice that actually this makes a whole lot of sense. So hearing you share your story so beautifully, it just like hit me like a ton of bricks.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. And what's interesting about that too is like you're saying, it makes sense like that I would go into writing and telling the stories, also because of the Akashic records. Because, for example, the memoir that I'm writing, right, is my story in this life and all of the past lives that I've
Ah,
had. And it's all one story because it is one story.
right.
And so
Mm.
you get all of that in this lifetime, but that's what I love the most about going into the records. And I know you've experienced that. You
Yeah.
see yourself in those past lives, and it makes even more sense.
Well, it's
This
like
life
you put a
makes
puzzle
more sense.
piece. You put a
Exactly.
puzzle piece,
Yeah.
a piece that
Yeah.
you were like, what's going on over here? And then
Yeah.
you go into the records, or you have a past life reading, right? It's
Hmm.
similar but different.
Right.
And it's like that puzzle piece that, oh, all of a sudden this part of me feels whole because now I
Mm.
get it, right? Yeah.
Ugh. Wow. I have chills. So you've lived obviously through trauma, and you've also helped others tell stories about trauma and triumph.
Hmm.
What's your message to women who feel afraid to tell the truth about what they've lived through? Oftentimes, I know Lisa and I haven't discussed this, but I'm sure all three of us have coached people who aren't fully letting themselves tell the whole story because they're protecting children or larger,
Mm.
extended family. So what's your message to women who, you know, are wanting to do this, but like kind of compartmentalize it and not tell the whole thing?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. I just resonate with that so deeply. I've
I mean, there was so much I didn't know when we first met.
women. Yeah, I've helped women that have been in abusive marriages, and it is probably the biggest thing that keeps them stuck. It is almost a prison in itself, and it's rooted in um, protection.
Mm.
Like you said, protecting the children, protecting even your abuser. you
Yeah.
know there's a lot of, you still have compassion, and uh it's also protecting yourself from the truth.
Mm.
The first person, and I'm going to name drop here, Elijah Selby.
Mm.
She was the first person, and I think it was even when I was pregnant, it was before I left. She was the first person that led me through a coaching session and got me to tell the truth about my marriage.
Mm.
Wow.
And I couldn't unsee it,
Yeah.
and it took, in a very loving way, because she's amazing. But it took some coaxing,
Mm.
because if I were to tell the truth, then I have to look at the truth.
Mm.
Yeah.
And so it is the most freeing thing. I will tell you, to go on like a very, real life scenario. When I was in court for my divorce, and I finally decided to tell the whole story, that was the biggest turning point in my healing journey, because I was still so afraid. I was so afraid. And finally, I just got to a point where I was like, I'm tired of being afraid. And so I told the court everything, which is so scary and vulnerable. And if you're in an abusive relationship, you have been beaten down like you're the bad guy and you did this and you're the bad guy. So you're even afraid to tell, because you're like, oh, I'm gonna have to show how bad I am. You know what I mean?
Right.
But let me tell you, it completely freed me. It freed me in a legal way. I got 100% of, custody of my children, and um, all of his stories just couldn't stay float, when compared to the truth. And it freed me on a soul level, because there was nothing to hide anymore. When
Mm.
you're living in an abusive relationship, you are living a double life. You are hiding, you know, you're not telling the truth to people. So when there's nothing left to hide, you're free.
Mm.
I love you use the word sovereignty. It's an act of sovereignty.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
It's one of my favorite words.
It's a
I
great
love it.
word.
It's a great word. I can't spell it. I always Chuck always gets me on that. But
I can never spell the word conscious, just for the record.
yeah, that's another tricky one.
So again, you said we always send out like an intake form so we can get a sense of what feels important to talk about. And you said that stories serve as both an inspiration and a warning. Examples of what's possible and what should never be tolerated. I think obviously you're a beautiful example of that. But that is a powerful distinction. So can you say more about that?
Again, what did I say? I said it was an inspiration and a warning.
Oh, inspiration and a warning, examples of what's possible and what should never be tolerated.
Okay, well, I would say that I wrote that a little while ago, but I think that what I was saying as far as inspiration, I think, is what we've been talking about, right?
Right. Hmm.
Mhm.
And maybe, the warning is what we were kind of also saying is that, women can live in denial of what's
Yeah.
really happening, And so it's like, because I know there was a lot of times where I just accepted it as like, well, this is okay behavior, right?
Mm.
Like, this is fine because this is normal. This is what I'm used to. And then something would, serve as like, if you're reading that and you go, oh, no, like, this is my situation.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a
Mhm.
warning that this is not okay,
Yeah.
Right.
you know?
Mm.
Mm. So switching gears a little bit to the actual writing piece of it, because like you're not just helping people tell stories, you're helping them write it. And
Mhm.
as someone who, loves to write, I'm actually right now working with a writing coach because I'm contributing a chapter to a book. So I such respect for what you do.
Thank you.
How do you begin that process with someone who wants to write a book?
Okay, so I do full ghostwriting. I also do coaching, right? So
Mhm.
it's a little bit different. Um, but the process really begins with planning. It doesn't sound very sexy, but it's so essential to get where you want, right? So, um, you really want to begin with asking important questions of, you know, and this is in my ebook that's on my website, by the way. So if you could just go there and get all this information. But it really begins with asking yourself the questions of, who am I writing this for? Why am I writing it? What is my point? I think that's the best question, right?
Mm.
There's theme, there's plot, there's characters, there, okay, all right. But what's your point? You know,
Mm.
because the thing is that when we just begin writing, we can get kind of lost in the woods of, oh, well, this story and this memory and that and that. And, you know, I see that that's where people that come to me are frustrated or lost or feel like they're, you know, at a standstill, is because they keep writing, but it just feels like something's off. And that's because they don't have a clear line of like, this is your point. Okay. So any stories you tell or anything should reflect the point. You know, if it doesn't, then it's not really doesn't belong in your book, you know. So
Mm.
yeah, always begin with planning, which is, you know, like book mapping. Does your coach do that with you, Kari? Did they take you through like a book mapping?
Right. Yes. Book map. Well, because it's a chapter, but it's like yes. And where we're all going to fit in is going to be determined by how we respond to certain prompts.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I don't know, does that answer your question, or are you?
It does. No, it's helpful because I'm super interested. Right. And I think some people have a story they don't know how to write. Some people know how to write. They don't know how they don't know what story they want to tell. I think
Right.
people like you, I'm realizing more and more, oh, you're the reason so much good stuff's going to get out there. It's not just a bunch of, you know, AI generated stuff. There's actual thought and guidance going into it. And AI certainly probably has its place and its help, but it's incredibly important what you do. And I know that more so because of what I just started. Yeah.
Well, I really truly believe that storytelling is an art form. So, you know, there is some, uh, you know, finesse to, like you're saying, okay, you could say, I have a great story, or I have really great information that I've learned, you know, and I want to combine that with my story, and it's great, but nobody's going to want to read it if it's not entertaining, or if
Mm.
it's not laid out right, or the characters aren't developed, or you know what I mean? So I would say that is the greatest benefit of investing in a ghostwriter, is
Mm.
because you're going to get the information that's important to you, your story, you know, you're not going to lose any of that, but you're going to now have it crafted into a beautiful work of art, you know. You know, usually if a client reads a first draft of mine, they cry, you know, they call me crying, because not only is it exactly, you know, what they wanted to say, but it has been put out there in a way that is captivating. You know, I'm a person that really works through on emotions. I'm very feminine, and you know, even in the Akashic records, I connect through emotions. And so, you know, you need to write your story through an emotional perspective. It's not just about the information, because that's not what sticks with people. That's not what moves people. It's not the information. It's the
Mm.
feeling that they get, just like a great piece of art, right? It's not exactly the content necessarily. It's the emotion that they're feeling. So that's what makes a great book.
Carrie and I are so lucky to know so many amazing women, and we have another connection, which is you, Ghost Writ. Ghost Writ, is that the right word? Ghost
Wrote.
Wrote?
Yeah,
Ghost
wrote.
Wrote? I don't know what the word is. One of our past guests, she was, the episode is called Living a High Vibe with Leanne Lopes, and it came out last August. So she was in our season 2. So you can go listen to that one. You helped her ghostwrite Karma to Dharma, a new age guide to becoming a superhuman.
Mhm.
She's actually under Leanne Marie Lambert.
Yes.
And I know it's out at least in
It's on
digital form.
Amazon.
Yeah, it's on Amazon. So and again, we won't go deep into that. You should go buy the book. She has an amazing story as well. And so that's probably like as long as I've known Leanne, she's wanted to write this book, and I'm so glad that you two paired up together. It seems exactly right. But what about women who are like, is my story really worth telling? Like, what would you say to that?
Hell yes, it is.
Good answer.
All of our stories are worth telling, you
Yeah.
know? And again, this is where I will say, it's so different when you can take that observer role and be the narrator for your story, because if women would do that, they might see, wow, that actually there is an incredible story there, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Um,
I've done a lot, right? So many times women think they
I've
haven't
done a
done
lot. I
enough.
think they
Right.
just you undervalue. I don't think you need to have these big fantastical experiences. Sometimes the most powerful books that people read are just about uh relatable stories of
Yeah.
Yeah.
real people. Why do you think like reality TV? I know that's been a little like it's not that real, but stay with you know, why do you think that took off so much?
Yeah.
You know, why do you think YouTube got so big? Because
No.
people want to relate to real people. We are meant to live in tribes, you know, that's
Yeah.
what I think.
Yeah.
And you know, and all working together and supporting each other and not worrying about our bills and not worrying about am I gonna be able to feed my children and have a roof over their head. You know, have had memories of lifetimes when I lived in, you know, tribal society, and it that those things didn't exist.
Mm.
Didn't
Mm.
exist.
Yeah.
I mean, can we even imagine that? And if like you're injured or you're sick, do you think you have to find a babysitter or someone to cover your shift? No.
Right.
It's a given. You don't even
Mm.
that way of life was so different. You had time to um you know, focus on what I would say really matters. And I think now we're just trying to survive. Like
Yeah.
we're just trying to
Gosh.
every month, you know, have a panic attack because the numbers aren't adding up. And now I have to worry about my children.
Mm.
You know, that's something wrong there
Yeah.
with
Totally.
society, right? And so I will say for that reason, you know, I meandered off a little bit from the question, but um, everybody's story is valid because we are yearning to be in
Mm.
community. That's where we are.
I really appreciate that personally because as we've talked about a lot on here, we talk about our human designs. I'm a projector. So it's really, really easy for me as a coach, as a friend, as a mom, whatever, to see someone's story and help them see it. And it's so hard for me to see my own, you know, like I don't know. And so it's such a great reminder for anyone who relates to that, that it takes another person often for people like me to like really look at it with you and see what's relatable for other people. So I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's what I really love about coaching, you know, and I am so lucky that all of my best friends are amazing coaches. So, like, every phone call I have, you know, is just like such an enriching coaching session. And it's because of just what you just said, Carrie. They're able
Mm.
to reflect back the
Mm.
truth of the situation or what they see when they look at you. You know,
Yeah.
so often, you know, we have an image of ourselves or what we think people perceive us as. And if you ask somebody else, you know, that cares about you, they probably don't see you that way at all. They see you
Hmm.
as someone completely different. And I would argue that they might see you better than you see yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. The honest feedback is so helpful.
Mhm.
I want to, if it's okay, shift gears just a little bit
Sure.
because so many of the people you're helping also are entrepreneurs, right?
Mhm.
So, because storytelling is also powerful professionally, right? So, for listeners who run businesses or serve others, why would writing a book be a valuable marketing tool?
Oh my gosh, I would say it is like the marketing tool. Okay. And that is because what I love the most about it, there's so many things I could really go off on this. But it's definitely like, okay, you can do, you know, a podcast episode or write a blog or talk here and this. Okay, that's great. You're getting little tidbits out there of your story, of what you have to offer, and people might catch one or they might read that or whatever. If they have your book, they have your whole story.
Mm.
They have the whole picture. When you talk about know, like, and trust, you can't do better than with your your book that shows the whole story, right? Who are you as a person? How did you get there? What is it that you have to teach us? Why should we care, right? It tells it all. It's the whole story. So I would say that is probably the most, powerful reason is that. And also it's evergreen, like it's not going anywhere. And you put it out, and I have always gifted books to people. You got to read this. Or people say, oh my God, I just read the most powerful book. You have to read this. That could happen 10 years after you've published your book. It's not going anywhere. So it's also kind of doing work for you in that way of like spreading your reach. And then it's also just a great tool to leverage, if you want to get speaking gigs or get media exposure. It's a really great tool. And for some reason, if you write a book, you're an expert, you know? And that's just kind of, how our human brains work. And just like I said, getting media and stuff, they're more likely to put you on if you are like, oh, and I'm an author and I have this whole book. I wrote a whole book on the subject. So I think it's a very powerful marketing tool.
I love that. So you kind of mentioned it, but I want to be more clear and really share with people that you have an ebook around how to write a book, although it's an ebook, so it's
Mhm,
it's a
mhm.
it's a top level, but say
Yeah.
a little bit more about that and where they can find it.
Okay. So I titled it How to Write a Book and Get It Done! Exclamation point. Because it's not a guide that is going to, I'm calling it a guide. It's an ebook, but it's not super long, which is also intentional, right? I want this to be simple, easy to absorb, straight to the point. It's not going to really teach you maybe the craft of storytelling. This is more about how do you manage your time and how do you really, because as a ghostwriter, I have 6 months,
Mm,
to collect the information, to get to know you, to hear your whole story, to plan it out, to get it done, to have it edited, all of the things. So that's a tight little window there. And so this guide is basically giving the tips, tricks, and tools, thank you, that I have learned being a ghostwriter on how to really execute it and, get it done in a timely manner.
I love that. Mm.
Wow. Jenny, this is so cool. I'm so happy for everyone listening to this. Just is there anything else about that process or people curious about writing a book that you wanted to add? Because I wanted to switch gears and find out what your favorite songs were. And if you remember what you told us or if you have a new one. But
Mhm,
before that, I just want to know if have we missed anything or is there anything you want people to know about that process?
mhm. Um, well, let's see. Yeah, I think I already mentioned this. To me, the biggest takeaway, honestly, is planning. It's not very sexy, but that is the biggest takeaway. Give yourself the time. I will tell you the piece of writing advice that I don't like, that's everywhere that I've heard getting my degree, and I hear it all the time that I'm not a fan of, is when people say, just sit down for an allotted time, right? Like an hour or whatever every day, even if you don't feel
Mm.
inspired, and just start writing and you'll have a book. Will you? I don't know. You know what I mean? Are you going to have a book that anybody wants to read? So I would say don't do that. You're going to waste so much time. Take time to plan. Ask yourself the important questions, get really clear on where you're going, what your point is. In my ebook, I have fun little things like, use index cards and move them around and what goes there. And, sometimes people are impatient and they're like, just no, I'm just going to start writing. It's going to take you longer if you
Mm.
do that. So that's my biggest takeaway for that is really give the time to planning before you dive into your story.
I'm just thinking of, because sometimes I can be a procrastinator. I would think about college was when I would write things, but you can't cram a memoir.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not going to be a fun experience yeah.
Yeah.
Memoir.
Well,
And
and
also, like I said, you get it done faster.
that's what
It
I was thinking.
takes the time planning. That's the whole point. You get
Yeah.
it done faster because then when you sit down for an hour, you know exactly what you're writing about for
Yeah, I
that
love
hour.
that. Yeah.
that's what I was
Great.
thinking too. Like if, yeah, okay, so the planning's not sexy, but the planning then makes, I would think, the actual writing super joyful because it is a,
Yes.
you are in a flow
Yes.
state then, right? Because you're so
Yeah.
clear. I
You
think
don't have to sit
people,
there and go, "Oh, what am I writing about?" You
yeah,
already know. And then the better thing is that you're like, "Okay, I know what I'm writing about. I remember that part. I'm going to do this." And then you're going, "Oh my God, I'm moving the needle every day." This is what
right.
I'm doing and
Mm.
voila. Yeah.
Yeah. Voila.
So my mother-in-law did this thing we gifted her called Storyworth.
Mm.
And she took her time with it, and I got to pick the prompts for her. And then she went back through and added photos to it. And she had so much fun. So what you're saying, and then my mom has it too. And she's answered them here and there. And she's feeling so behind on the photos thing. And it kind of reminds me of what you're talking about. Sounds like enjoying a photo album you put together versus spending all your time frantically looking for the photos.
Yes,
It's like,
exactly.
how do you want to spend your time?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. Thank you.
Hmm.
So we always ask, what's a favorite song, or a song that resonates with your story or where you are in life right now? Did you come with one or two?
Yeah, I mean, I love so many songs and so much music. So, but I think what I put on your intake form, and I will still say that is, Fight Song.
Yep.
Mhm.
Song really hits home. Another one was, and also because of the timing, this is when I had really decided I was going to leave my marriage, was from, the live action Aladdin. Oh gosh, I can't think of what it's called now. It's a song that Jasmine sings that was really popular. Oh, I can't think of what it's called.
If it wasn't
Um,
one of the ones you wrote down was Speechless by Naomi Scott, but that's
There it
not
is.
it, is it?
That's
Oh,
it.
that's
Yes.
it.
Thank
Oh,
you.
Okay.
that's it.
Okay.
Oh,
That's it.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. So as far as like speaking to my story, I would say those two songs. But I like music. I like all kinds of music, so it's hard to pick a favorite.
Often that's what our guests say. If you're a music lover, it's hard to think of one in particular for sure. But those
Yeah,
are,
yeah,
you're right. Those are really great choices. And it speaks not only to your essence in this whole conversation, but your story.
yeah,
It makes
yeah.
total sense to me.
Those two definitely feel resonate with my story. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I love it. So what is, we've heard planning, we know that, but when you think just broadly again about a woman, whether she publishes her story or not, what is one thing you'd like every woman that is listening to remember today?
That they are worthy, they're worthy of being heard.
Mm,
They're worthy of speaking, you
yeah.
know. I think
Mm.
sometimes women are just taught to be quiet and agreeable and be a good little girl.
Mm,
And that can continue into adulthood through relationships. And so I would just tell them all to speak up.
mm. As you have done so beautifully.
Absolutely.
So what's your website so people can find you and go find that ebook?
Yeah, it's easy. It's my name. It's jennynesbit.com.
And we'll have it in the show notes as we always do.
Mm. This was such a gift, Jenny. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your story and your big heart. You are, I can see why everybody loves you so much.
Aw, you're so sweet. Well, thank you. This was so much fun. Seriously. And that's what I always tell Lisa when we talk. I'm just like, I look forward to it. If we're like, are we gonna talk? I'm like, that's like my highlight. I love it, and that's again, I'll go back to why it's so important for women to have community. And you two doing the retreats. It seriously lights me up that you're doing this because it meant so much in my life, you know, having retreats with these women. And I would tell all of your listeners, if you've never done that, it needs to be on your bucket list. It needs to be on
Mm.
your right now priority list, because so many times we put our you know, it's too much money, or it's too much time away from the kids, or it's this and that. No, you are going to come back as a much better mother, a much better you know, wife, or whatever you are. It is going to enrich your life. So I just want to thank you guys for doing that. It seriously makes me so happy that you are cultivating this space for women. It's important.
Thank you. Well,
Thank you.
the link to our next retreat, which is in Chicago, October 3rd through the 5th, is also in the show notes. So thank you, Jenny, for giving us a little free publicity there. We didn't have to do it. And then for all of our listeners, if this episode, first off, I don't know how this episode couldn't have moved you, but if it did, and you were thinking of the perfect person to share it with, please do that. And, you know, just we should all be reminded on a daily basis that our voice matters.
Yeah.
And your story needs to be told.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
And
everyone.
can I throw in one little thing?
Please.
Oh, I also wanted to say that I do offer free consultations. So
Oh,
for
good.
women, like you're saying, that are like, I don't know, do I have a story? Is my story worth telling? You know, go to my website, send me a message, and it's not even about pitching you services, you know. I can just be an open ear and show you the story that you do have.
And I can guarantee you that will be true. Like,
Yeah,
again, I've said it
it
twice
will
already.
be.
I'm going to say it again.
Yeah.
Jenny is gifted, and this conversation you have with her, no matter where it leads, will be very, very transformational. So thank you for throwing that in. Absolutely. Everything will be in the show notes.
Great.
Thanks, everyone. We'll be back next week with the things we know.
Bye.